Hey, before we get started, a quick note from the edit room. In the time since I recorded this, it's occurred to me that some listeners might be a little bit more sensitive to some of the content of this episode than I am. It is totally valid to have some material be just a little too close to home or a little bit uncomfortable for whatever reason. And so I figured I'd give you the warning up front that while it's nothing too egregious or even that descriptive, it's just really thematic or broad strokes ideas. But if you think you'd be a little bit uncomfortable by the idea of a young infant in peril, this episode does touch on that. Again, it's nothing especially descriptive, and I think most people would probably be okay hearing it, but hey, we all come at this from different places and different experiences. I'm in no position to judge if you think for whatever reason that might make you a little bit more uncomfortable. I hope you'll find out for yourself, but no worries if you think that, you know what, it sounds like this one might not be for me. With that said, I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series. Last time was one of my favorite episodes, so I really hope that you don't actually need this recap. I hope you listened to it, but just in case you didn't, last time Emile went inside the wormhole, and before much could really even happen, things went wrong. Fern had the Tyson's captain subsumed inside of them, but due to a combination of the reality that Fern was creating and the vision and voice of the wooden heart that the captain already had inside their brain, Fern accidentally kind of brought about the wooden heart in a way that made the captain an avatar. It's seriously, go back and listen to the episode. This is kind of hard to explain. It sounds crazy in tiny form, but the captain, powered by this extra god juice, was able to break free of Fern. Basically, the entire episode was a fight between the captain as avatar of the wooden heart and Emile, trying to break free from it while the ship was in a kind of spin, creating off the rails that the wormhole was supposed to be in because the captain had messed with the controls. Eventually, Emile was able to get the captain's suit, since it was an electromagnetic suit that allows you to better attach yourself onto the outside of ships. Emile juiced up the suit and got the captain locked down onto the floor, particularly after having been slammed with a piece of the cargo. The captain's out cold. God, it was a lot of exciting times that this just does not do justice to. I cannot stress enough. This recap should not be the way that you listen to the last episode. It was one of my favorites. Go back and actually listen to it. But at the end of the last episode, when we were resolving that fight between Emile and the captain, we determined that it wasn't quite all wrapped up just right. We got a weak hit on it, and when we randomly rolled on a table about what the complication was going to be, we determined that victory was short-lived. A new peril or foe appears. Now, if you stuck around to the very end of the episode during the outro stuff, you listened to when I rolled the oracles on what kind of creature this would be. Now, as a short recap for you, in case you didn't listen to that, here's what we determined. We know that it's a space creature, because this is something that is living outside in the wormhole. It is small, the size of about a dog. It is a beast or mammal of some sort. It is dripping mucus. It is an apex predator, and it controls lesser creatures. Now, I asked all of you to put your own minds towards what that might be, and I'm recording this too soon to know if any of you indeed submitted your ideas. I hope you did, because I'd really love to hear what you turned all of that into. That would be really cool. But I spent a little bit of time between last session and now determining what I thought that was going to be. I didn't want to sit here fumbling over it for a while I mulled over ideas on the mic, so I had some ideas. So Emile gets the ship back under control.
It's no longer in its aileron. It's no longer rolling around. The captain is still locked down and out cold. Emile is in the cockpit, having gotten this under control. Fern is still... Oh, I forgot to mention that during the recap. Fern got, exploded all over the walls. They're okay. They're based on being sentient lava lamp goo, basically. Fern is able to survive being splattered into various different pieces. They'll just coalesce again afterwards. I think Fern is still in that process. Actually, let's ask the Oracle really quickly. I didn't determine that. I am going to say it's a 50-50. Has Fern reconstituted yet? No. Oh, barely. So on a 50-50, 51 to 100 is no, and I rolled a 51. So, sorry, Fern, you just barely aren't reconstituted, but you're not. Fern is still in that process, but, is making progress on it. Some larger chunks are starting to get there. Emile, I think, looks down and has despite their kind of arguments recently, definitely has a moment of, pity and... Pity's the wrong word. Empathy is more what I was thinking of. Has that moment of empathy and concern for, a creature that's been at least a little bit of a friend on this voyage. They've worked together. But then Emile looks back to the instrument panel and he notices something that he hadn't before. There's a bit of a... It's not like a full-on alarm. It's an alert, though. Kind of just a, heads up. We've detected... there's something smeared along the outside of the ship. There's a foreign substance has been detected. And Emile pulls up the alert and reads more of the details and determines the section of the ship that it's smeared on. And I think it's fair to say, and we've potentially even looked into this before and used it, I don't recall, but we're going to say that there are cameras positioned on the exterior of the ship in certain areas looking along the length of the ship just so that you can observe for moments like this, if there are problems on the outside, ways that you can see sections of the hull. There are probably some blind spots, but this is... Well, let's determine if this is in one of them. I'm going to say again, 50-50. Is this in a blind spot? No. This time it was a 64, so it wasn't quite as close to being a yes. It's not in a blind spot, so Emile is able to quickly pull it up on one of the cameras. And in conjunction with just the data stream about what's detected about this substance, Emile sees a little bit of this sheen, this translucent sort of smear, not a smear in the sense of VY572, but smeared along the side of the ship. There is this kind of, it almost looks like ectoplasm. It's a slimy substance. And in the far distance of what the camera can pick out, in the very background, Emile can see that there is something moving around right up against the hull. Now, it's not moving about in a way that is inherently aggressive or problematic. It's not like the gremlin on the side of the ship that's ripping things apart or anything like that. No, it's more actually kind of writhing, you might say. It's this slow stretching in and out, pawing around at the air. It's movement that seems like it's taking a lot of effort. And when Emile does the processing as best as possible to zoom in and then sort of artificially enhance and edge detect and determine what is it he's seeing here, he sees that it's very reminiscent of if you accidentally hit a deer or something with your car. It looks like a wounded creature. But he doesn't see any blood or anything like that. Again, it is more of a slimy kind of residue. But the creature that he sees is certainly not an amorphous kind of slime creature. No, he sees a star child. I determined that all of those oracles last time, they made me think of I think it's a star child. I am not sure, but from the 2001 series, the space baby, basically. Its scale is definitely much bigger than an actual baby. It's huge. It's the size of a large dog. And it seems that Emile, when spinning about in the wormhole and getting off course, has managed to skid up against it and pierce its amniotic sac. And so the fluid inside is all along the side of the ship. Now, the baby itself has not been hit, but the sack has been pierced and it's leaking out and smeared along the ship. Some of it is still in there because gravity is not really a thing in the same way here, so the sack is not completely depleted, but some of it is along the ship, and inside of it, the baby is just kind of writhing. I don't think Emile knows exactly how this is supposed to go ordinarily, but it seems that having pierced this amniotic sac, he is causing this star child to go through its birthing process, but it's too early. Ordinarily, I might have to gather information to know this, but because we know that a new peril has appeared, I'm going to just say that Emile is able to see that this child is struggling to, well, not breathe exactly, because it's meant to exist out in space where it doesn't breathe, but it's not doing well. It's showing clear signs of distress. Now, Emile knows that obviously this is no ordinary baby. For one, it's floating in an amniotic sac in a wormhole, and most babies don't tend to do that. Some do. Most don't. But his AR is also able to identify for him, at this distance with this many pixels, the scale of that baby is roughly the size of a large dog. It's probably a little imprecise just based on the resolution it has, but he gets the scale that this baby is huge. This star child is probably about half the size of Emile, and some of its height is even concealed a little bit because it's in the fetal position. Most of the time. Again, it's kind of writhing about a little bit. But Emile feels all of the same terror and empathy that he would feel if this were a human child. I mean, it looks enough like one that it stirs up all of these kind of paternal feelings inside of him, and he knows that he's got to get this, he knows that it's not time. He doesn't know a lot about what it is to be a star child, but he's not confident that this star child is going to survive being birthed this early. And so he needs to be able to get it into the med bay so he can hopefully stabilize it. Now, we know that Emile does not have a spacesuit. Anytime he's gone into space, it's been about using Fern. But Fern is not yet constituted. Now, there is a known spacesuit on board, but the captain is inside of it. Now, last we left the captain, they were knocked out. Presumably, they still are. In fact, I'm not even going to roll for it. I'm going to say that they're still knocked out, but we don't know for how long. It's worth it to Emile to risk it for this. In fact, why don't we make this a troublesome vow? Because Emile knows that maybe had he gotten the ship under control first, had he prioritized that more, last session he specifically did not prioritize that, maybe he could have avoided this collision, and so this is his fault. And Emile is nothing if not guilty for the results of his actions and the way that they hurt people. We've seen that a lot so far. So Emile quickly swears a vow to himself that he will save this star child. I will save the star child. Troublesome vow. Let's swear that really quickly to start off this session. He does this as he's racing over to the down the corridors back towards the cargo bay where he left the captain, hustling down the ladder. I think because the ladder is iron and he's doing that thing where your hands are alongside the rungs and you kind of slide down, his hands are touching iron as he makes this vow. And so I think he feels this little extra tingle from truly swearing an iron vow the right way. Now, I rolled a weak hit, but I do have enough momentum I could turn it into a strong hit. Now, on a weak hit, I would just begin my quest with more questions than answers. I would take +1 momentum and envision what you do to find the path forward. In this case, I think I'm just going to take the weak hit. That's fine. I think this is correct that he has more questions than answers because he doesn't know a lot about he doesn't know a lot about star childs. Star children? Star Chiladria? He doesn't know a lot about the star child. A lot of it is conjecture. So I'm just going to take that +1 momentum, and the path forward is just going to be knowing that he has to get inside this suit and knowing that that could be very dangerous because the suit is the only thing keeping the captain at bay right now. So if the captain wakes up... Nonetheless, we see Emile back in the cargo bay, standing over the body, knowing that time is precious in a couple of senses. He's trying to build up the willingness to risk it because everything in him right now is fighting against the idea of taking off this suit. He's so worried about what this avatar of a god could do if it's released again, but he doesn't see the glow of the eyes inside of it. It seems to still be unconscious. But all of these thoughts are racing through his mind. Will he be fast enough to get the captain out of the suit? Even if he does and gets the suit on, will he be fast enough at securing the Star Child inside to then deal with the captain afterwards? What's he going to do? Should he vent the captain into space? Does he have anything that he can do? Does this ship have a brig? Actually, that does seem likely. Because this was a ship that was captured at a jail, we determined this was a prisoner transport ship. I'm not even going to roll an oracle on that. There has to be a secure place to keep a prisoner. So Emile knows, get the captain out of the suit, get the captain into the secure area. Man, actually, there's a lot going on with it. I'm going to upgrade this to dangerous. There are so many ways this could go wrong. This is a dangerous vow now. It's not just troublesome. First things first, he maintains the connection he had before to the captain's suit. He has direct control. He's already hacked in. There's no way he can move the body into the secure area without turning down the electromagnetism. So he does that first and foremost. And then we're going to make a face danger here that is, if I'm being honest, I feel like this is an iron move. I don't think I have a better way to... Oh, you know what? No, I was going to say, I don't think I have a better way than just hauling him over there and just like, he's a big guy. It's heavy. It's a long way to drag him. That sounded like an iron move. However, I am going to have Emile take off his mobility belt and put it on the captain, having like linked up to it with his computer to control it so that he can have the captain sort of hover off the ground a little bit and be moving through the corridor. It's going to help take some of that weight and allow this to be a little bit easier. Still an iron move, but I'm going to get the +1 from the belt. Let's see how this starts off. All right, we actually started... I didn't need the belt at all. I rolled a strong hit with a match, so I get to take +1 momentum, and we get the match. Clearly what this indicates is with the mobility belt and everything, we're able to get him there very quickly. He does not wake up. I'm definitely going to give myself a pip of progress on I will save the Star Child because he's got the captain into the secure area. Emile gets the captain into the brig without him waking up. And the match is going to represent he finds something. This is an area he's not been in before. I think he's going to find something inside of this cell that was left behind. I am going to roll a descriptor and focus to get an idea of what sort of thing Emile finds in there. And we get undiscovered home. Well, that's certainly true of like somebody would have lived in here for a little bit of time. What could somebody have in here that makes it a little bit more homey and something that could be useful? I don't want it to just be flavorful. This was earned on a match. Not a high one, but I've got it. It turns out that this was actually where Shark was calling home during the journey between the prison and Cinder. Shark was staying in here, and Emile finds some of Shark's effects, including an indication. He finds some representation of where Shark initially came from, Shark's original home, where he grew up. I think it's something that's quickly obvious. It's not like he reads through his diary or anything like that. It's more like a necklace or something that fell under the bed, and so Shark forgot about it. It fell off at one point. He wasn't ever able to find it. Emile sees it while low down to the ground because he's dragging the captain in here, and it's a necklace that makes it immediately identifiable what place Shark comes from. And so, really quickly, let's randomly determine a couple of quick things about what planet Shark comes from. It's not going to be in this sector. It's not going to be in any of the sectors we've been to. It's a completely different destination. But we get... He lives on a Jovian world, so a Jupiter-like place. Its atmosphere, which this should not be surprising given that it's a Jovian world, it has a toxic atmosphere. That's pretty likely. So clearly this is a place where people have to stay inside a lot, or have some other solution for that. Its toxic atmosphere is superheated. It has pockets of explosive gases, as well as clouds of metal particles. The first thing I rolled for life was extinct, but we know that's not the case. There are people that live there. Shark came from there. I rolled it again and I got diverse, so we're going to go with that. I rolled its name as Mistral, and I don't think that... Oh, let's see. Is this in the Terminus, the Outlands, or the Expanse? Let's say... I like the idea of this being in the Terminus. I've started imagining this as very much a Cloud City kind of place. I expect that there's a lot of gas mining here. If there are all of these explosive gases, I don't think that that's in like a dangerous sense. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, it could be, but I think that's harvested a lot for probably various types of fuel and stuff. This is probably a gas mining kind of place and refinement center. It's in the terminus. And yeah, it's probably pretty well known as that sort of place. And so Emile now knows where he grew up and perhaps even this necklace that he finds. Like, he picks it up and there's some clear indication that it's shark. Like there's a carving in there or something that has a symbol that Emile remembers shark back in the days where they were serving on the ship together. It was kind of, he was just always drawing that, carving it into things and stuff. It's the type of thing where if he were a high school student, he'd be doodling it in his notebook over and over again. And so Emile recognizes it. He knows it's sharks, and perhaps if he goes back to Mistral, he can use it to find some people who knew about him, and maybe those people will be able to help him clear Shark's name. But anyway, that's not at all what's important right now. Emile pockets that for later. Not enough for me to give myself a pip of progress on clearing his name, because it's certainly not itself helping him clear his name, but it helps give Emile a bit of a process forward. Now, however, before I can give myself the progress on saving the Star Child, getting the captain into the cell doesn't help with that. Getting him out of his suit, however, that's the important bit. Because if Emile can get in that suit, then he'll have a way out to be able to rescue the Star Child. So let's do another face danger here. This one, I think, really is more of an edge move. Emile's going to take the mobility belt back now. He unclips that from the captain now that it's not necessary. Doesn't want to leave him that device. I think the reason this is edge is it really is all about the agility and kind of dexterousness of finagling and getting the suit off and doing it quickly. Definitely not really a hard to do thing with strength. It's just finicky and all of that. So we're going to do an edge move. I think it's a little too finicky for me to benefit from the mobility belt. That's not the type of thing this is good at. So let's just roll face danger with edge. We got a high momentum as we're doing all this stuff really quickly. We get a weak hit that I could turn into a strong hit. To succeed but not without a cost, make a suffer move -1, or I make the strong hit. I think, again, I'm willing to take the weak hit on this. So what do I lose? Suffer move of -1. So clearly Emile is able to get the captain out of the suit, but there is a moment where the eyes are still closed. This captain is conked out from that hit. But there's a moment when Emile looks at the captain's face that he hears once again the voice of the wooden heart call out to him like it did before. Can see just the faintest of the green glow coming through his closed eyelids. It's still there. It was just hard to notice with the suit on. But when Emile looks at that glow, the voice of the wooden heart says very faintly in his head, "My silence is only my slumber, and I have eons of patience to see you again, Emile Spencer. You would do well to ensure that our meeting is on good terms." And suffice it to say, this very much freaks Emile out. He feels his heart pounding and knowing that this is a force not to be trifled with, and while there is no time right now to even consider that, part of his mind is reeling at the idea that this is a hell of an entity to have Emile on its radar, and Emile is going to take that hit to spirit. Now I am going to try to endure that stress, and we get a miss. Now I could burn all this momentum to turn into a weak hit, otherwise it's worse than I thought, suffer an additional -1 spirit, or lose momentum -2. Now in fairness, I've got a lot of momentum right now. I could easily take that. My momentum's a lot higher than my spirit, so I think I'm going to take the hit to momentum, as this represents that Emile is shaken to the point where he lingers there for a moment, longer than he probably should, especially given that he's still in the room with the captain, and he's starting to see the body stirring a little bit. And that's what eventually breaks him out of this daze that he's in, is the recognition that, oh shit, I don't even know if the captain actually did stir, or if it's just his imagination was running so wild that he thought he saw it. But when he thought he saw the fingers twitching just a little bit, it breaks him free from this daze, hustles out of the room, and slams the button that locks the door behind him. Now, however, I will give myself the first progress marked on I will save the Star Child, because Emile now has himself inside this magnetic spacesuit, which is perfect. If he needs to be clambering along the outside of the ship, this is the exact sort of thing to be in to do it. And now he has the ability to do this without having to rely on Fern. It's fantastic. That being said, it's still very dangerous, especially as Emile is kind of unfamiliar with this. So as Emile makes his way over to the airlock where the captain initially came in, Emile steadies himself, thinks through the kind of checklist of how he can do this safely, even though he's never trained for it. He's very much not a spacer. But he thinks through, okay, I gotta make sure the magnetization is working. He does various checks on that while the pressure is cycling and all that, and the airlock is preparing. Make sure to hook onto something as quickly as possible. I think it's fair to say that he has the mobility belt done around the outside just in case he needs to be able to use it. But then he's outside, and we are going to face danger with speed, mobility, or agility in order to get to the Star Child and get them inside the ship. We're going to do that all as just one roll rather than piecemeal every last little component of it. So it's just going to be a face danger with edge. I think he would indeed be using the mobility belt, risking it just running out of juice and not being usable anymore. So I'm going to get the +1 on this. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I got a weak hit. Sadly, one of the dice was a 10, so there's nothing I can do about it. I succeed, but not without cost. Make a suffer move. I think it is fair to say that supply would go down on this. He's been using a lot of what's on board to function as the kind of chemical propellants that are working in this mobility belt. And so his supply is dwindling the more he puts his resources into making this belt work. But he does get there, and he is able to secure the Star Child. I am actually going to make this a separate roll, because now I'm trying to imagine, so he's there at this amniotic sac. How does he get the sac inside while not damaging the Star Child inside? I think it's going to take some specific precision care to not burst this sac and release more of the amniotic fluid anymore, not damage this child more, or not cause more harm in the transit. And that's a very different kind of danger than Emile was facing for himself. So I think, Emile does his best to kind of cradle his arms gently along the outside of this sort of egg-shaped amniotic sphere that the child is in. He tries not to squeeze because he knows there's already a rupture in it, and then he's going to do what he can to quickly but carefully, again with the aid of the mobility belt, because he thinks that would be more of a smooth glide than walking with magnets step by step along the outside. He's just going to kind of coast back towards the airlock. Again, this is definitely an agility. It's another edge with a +1, because much as I don't think it's a good idea to just kind of make every last little thing its own little roll, I do think the stakes are different enough on this that it's worth making its own separate roll. And this, if we do it successfully, will definitely be another hit of progress on saving the Star Child. So edge of the +1 as we try and coast back to the airlock. Oh yeah, strong hit. Take +1 momentum, getting us up to a momentum of 8. We are successful. We move with grace and speed without managing to lose more of the fluid inside. The child is still clearly writhing around inside a little bit. Emile is trying to suppress his feelings as best as possible. He's not a doctor. He's not used to the kind of setting aside the emotions of it all and just doing the job. But he knows he has to. He needs to compartmentalize. He gets back into the airlock, gets the child down on... I think what he's going to do is he's going to now wrap the orb in the mobility belt just so it can hopefully hover off the floor rather than have to, he doesn't, again, because it's already got a rupture in it, he doesn't want to have to carry it when there's gravity involved, and certainly doesn't want to have to push it along the floor or roll it or anything like that. He needs it to keep being able to hover. So he puts the belt around it, and let me give myself the hit of progress that I said I would give myself. The problem is, I think the airlock is on the lower level with the cargo bay. That makes more sense to me than the upper level with the living quarters and stuff. I don't think you would necessarily want an airlock up there. It's just too close in case anything goes wrong. You want a little bit of separation. So it's on the lower deck, and we have previously described how there was that kind of tunnel, there was that kind of vertical shaft with the ladder in it, which is how we went between the decks before. And I don't think it is wide enough to allow the rather big amniotic sac to get through. Like, you couldn't just do that without rupturing it. So now haste is going to be a factor because Emile can get it all the way to that ladder, but in order to get to the med bay, he's going to have to get the Star Child, carry the Star Child outside of the fluid, or, very quickly, it's all going to rupture out anyway. One way or another, he has to do that. But I think Emile determines that he thinks the safest way would just be to carry the child directly, because his worry is that maybe it's getting some kind of, nutrients or ability to do its version of breathing through the fluid. And once that's all gone, if the sac is if the skin on the outside is still just like draped over the baby, like Emile just has versions of like a child stuck inside a plastic bag. Like, it's bad kind of imagery here. He doesn't want that. So Emile grits his teeth, recognizing like that this is bad, but we got to get there. He needs to get up this ladder as quickly as possible, carrying this child. I think, but before he does, I am actually we're in the cargo area. I'm going to check my gear here to see if there's any kind of like a hover platform or something. Like, we're in the future. There've got to be like hover ways to carry around cargo better, to not have to deal with just the strength of it nearly as well. Can we find something like that that's meant for small loads that are, small enough to get up this ladder? There has to be some way to get heavy things up, and some kind of elevator system or ways to do that just in case. So we're checking our gear to see, can Emile find such an implement to get a delicate thing up the ladder? A tensor's floating disk kind of solution, basically. So checking our gear, and we get... All right, a strong hit. Yeah, we have it and are ready to act. Take +1 momentum. There we go. Okay. Momentum is all the way up to 9. Emile thinks about it for a moment, but then thinks, like, who knows what all kind of things are on the outside of this suit. It's certain we don't know how sterilized it's been or not. We know that up until recently it was the captain's suit, so who knows how he treated it or what kind of pathogens are on the outside. He certainly doesn't want the Star Child right up against it, so while he is going to have to still take it out of the sack to be able to get it up the ladder shaft, at least once that happens, Emile won't have to like climb a ladder while carrying this baby right up against him. So he has the implement to be able to do it, the hover platform, which is small enough to get in. But this is definitely a face danger with Edge, as this is all about the speed of getting both Emile and the Star Child up into the med bay as quickly as possible. The results of this roll will encompass all of that. This will be getting to the med bay. So, face danger with Edge. I don't want to use the mobility belt on this simply because I don't want Emile to have to take the time to unhook it from around the amniotic sac and then put it around himself and get it all set up. I think that would take too much time. So he's just going to leave it down here on the ground as we face danger with Edge and using the platform, getting up to the med bay. Let's see what we get. All right, I haven't missed, but I could burn all of my momentum to turn that into a strong hit because I've got a lot of momentum. That seems like the perfect opportunity I've been waiting for. We burn all of our momentum, we get a strong hit, which gives us +1 momentum. We get the Star Child into the med bay, giving myself another hit of progress on that. This is the place to be. So Emile, quickly, let me pull up my assets on this. We have a full-on med bay module on here. And the benefit we have is when you use your med bay to heal yourself or another patient, you may re-roll your action die if its value is less than your vehicle's integrity. And thankfully, our integrity is all the way at 5 right now because we got this ship expertly repaired when we were in Hyperion, so perfect. We'll basically be able to re-roll anything that is lower than anything 4 or lower. So let's make the heal move on this. This is the kind of all-important one, and sadly we don't have momentum anymore. But I believe this is going to be a wits move. Let's see. Yes, provide care is a wits move. So thankfully, Emile, he's not a doctor, but he is familiar enough with what's going on, and he's got the benefit of his AR maybe helping him identify problem areas. Let's actually, before I make the heal move, I feel like I need to know what needs to be fixed. I think that's important before he can heal. He needs to know, what's wrong with it. He doesn't know Star Child anatomy well enough to understand how it even should be. It certainly looks very human, but it doesn't breathe or anything. So, what can Emile do to help this child? So let's gather information really quickly. It's another wits move, of course. So Emile, using all of the capabilities of the medbay to do various kind of scans and pulling up more medical type information, finding out what are the problems so that he can try and solve them. So gather information gets us a miss. Your investigation unearths a dire threat or reveals an unwelcome truth that undermines your quest. Pay the price. Now, I did determine when randomly rolling for this creature that it is an apex predator that controls lesser creatures. Now, my interpretation of that when I started this session was that that is something that a star child might grow into being, but this one hasn't even been born yet, so maybe it hasn't fully unleashed its powers yet. But perhaps, since it has been... it's no longer in its sac, it's been kind of born in that sense, or the birthing process has truly begun, perhaps it unleashes sort of a reflexive attempt to control Emile, as it's like it's sort of like that's the way it imprints on a creature, is the first creature it sees, it tries to bind into its control. So yeah, because we had a miss here, as Emile gets close and is doing these scans and everything, it unearths this threat that this is a creature that control. Now, I don't want this to be direct mind control in the way that, like, the captain is being taken over by the wooden heart, or like how Fern was in control and like puppeteering Emile's body. I feel like we've explored that territory plenty. I want to find a different way. Like, how does a star child control someone? What if it's more like, rather than a direct mental link kind of thing, what if it's a lot more subtle than that? And it's more like a pheromone kind of thing. I want this to be more along the lines of leaning into the stars of it. I don't think by it controls other creatures, I don't think that's about it being like a puppet master kind of thing. I want to say that a star child is more in control of like their destiny, like their zodiac, like the movement of the stars and the way that influences somebody's fate. I think it sees Emile as a threat right now because it doesn't know what Emile is trying to do, and it's in that kind of just danger mode. No human has ever been present for the birth of a star child before, particularly because they seem to be born in like wormholes and stuff in like subspace environments. I think the process by which it learns to understand the universe and control it and everything is a very disruptive and chaotic one. And so it's not malicious exactly. The child doesn't know any better. It starts weaving a sort of tapestry and like changing the position of distant stars in a way that affects Emile's fate. And I think somehow on the inside, Emile can feel like at least a portion of this. I don't think he has like a perfect sense of what it means for him and how it's changed his fate, but he knows something is wrong now. He understands that there's something that he will never be able to do. It's definitely not as bad as he'll never be able to find VY572 and destroy it. I think it's going to be as simple as this. And this, probably isn't even that big of a manipulation, honestly. But I think Emile now understands in the full, just like, it's not a suspicion, it's not a hunch, it's not reasoning. It is just a feeling in his soul that he understands that his destiny to find VY572 and destroy it, it is going to happen, but Emile will never survive the process of destroying VY572. It is too colossal. It is too impactful. Emile is just but one small mortal creature, a mere nothing compared to a galactic scale space beast like this. Emile will never survive the attempt. He does not know if he'll even be successful, but he knows that he won't live through it. With a certainty unparalleled by anything else he has felt in his whole life. But in that moment, when he knows this to be absolutely true, inalterably true, that he will not live through the process, he doubles down and commits that it's still his destiny and he will see it through. Actually, I'm going to face danger with heart right now, because this is about the resolve, command, or sociability. I think if I can get a success on this heart roll, to like truly know that unwaveringly that he will see through, even if it means his own death, that does not stop him at all. If he can make the heart roll, I'm going to give myself a pip of progress on it. Specifically on the if it takes me to the end of my days part, because he'll know with certainty he'll do what it takes to truly mean to the end of his days. So let's face danger with heart. I get a weak hit, but that's still a hit. So I succeed, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move. That's gotta be a spirit loss, right? So I'm gonna give myself a pip of progress on my VY572 vow. We're up to 1 full box and 1 pip of it, but we definitely suffer a spirit loss. No matter how resolved he is, it takes something from you to know that the steps that you're taking are towards your own demise. To commit yourself to a suicidal path definitely takes something from you. I am going to try and endure the stress of it, though. So let's see. Our spirit is only at 1, but we do have a heart of 2, so that'll help. Let's see. Well, I get a weak hit on it, so I could lose 1 momentum in exchange for 1 spirit, but I'm not going to. Emile just recognizes this is his path. It's going to kill him, but better to die for something. It rocks him to his core, but he shakes it off and recognizes that he has a task to do. I think he knows, some part of him also knows, like, this manipulation came from the Star Child. And perhaps because of that, he reasons that maybe he didn't have to die before. Maybe there was a way to survive it. But with his destiny being what it is right now, he can't anymore. Now let's make the heal move. You know, it occurs to me that the myth says, your investigation unearths a dire threat or reveals an unwelcome truth that undermines your quest. Turns out the quest it undermines is not the saving the Star Child one. It undermines the VY5721 one. I hadn't specifically intended that, but now that I reread the exact wording, that is definitely done by the book. So because we didn't get any kind of hit on our investigations to try and find out about, like, what can we do to save the Star Child, I think Emile just has to act on instinct, which is that if this is a creature that is birthed in space, Emile just starts just fucking guessing, because, again, he does not have time and he does not know about what a Star Child needs, but his wild guess is that the process that's supposed to happen is the Star Child travels through the wormhole like a birth canal, really, and it's only when it gets out of the other end into actual space, when it leaves subspace and enters the real universe, maybe that's when it's supposed to come free from its amniotic sac and be truly born and float through space. Because he vaguely knows that there are, like, tall tales and reports of, like, these infants floating through, these child-looking things moving through deep space. Perhaps that's some of the stories that you hear about the Expanse. And so he knows eventually they come into real space, and so his thought is, it may not need to breathe, but maybe in order to be truly fully born, what it needs is proper starlight. It needs that kind of just the radiation of space to be okay and be fully formed. And so what Emile does is they're probably, given this med bay is, like, sophisticated and, like, it is a module worthy med bay. I think it's got solutions for all kinds of things, including, like, radiation therapies and stuff. It can approach from all kinds of ways. And so I think Emile is basically going to modify some of the radiation treatment that it can do to mimic the radiation from a star as best as possible, like programming the computer to be able to do that and give this Star Child a dose of it. And that's basically just all the flavor that I'm giving to Emile is making this heal roll using the med bay, and this is how it's happening. And so I'm just going to roll it and see what we get. So we make a heal roll with wits, and we get... Yes! Okay. It is a strong hit, and I rolled the 6 on the action dice. Now, it was barely a strong hit. The challenge dice came to play, but I did get a 9 total, and that beats everything we got. So the care is helpful. If you or the ally under your care are wounded, well, we're not healing something that actually has stats, so I don't need to worry about how much health I give back. But importantly, it is successful. Emile guesses correctly about what it takes to heal this child. It needs starlight, and the radiation is a good substitute. So I'm going to mark progress on that. He has this kind of constant stream of it going at, like, a low dose. And the writhing that we saw of the Star Child from before, it changes a little bit. And it's more like its limbs reach out towards the source of the radiation more. It can clearly feel it. And its mouth moves a little bit. It's almost reminiscent of a newborn suckling. It's definitely feeding off of this and feeling more positive, and its motions become less erratic. its reaction is definitely positive, and it stops writhing in the same way. It calms in a visible way. Now, I could try and resolve this vow now, but I could see if there's a way I can get one more bit of progress. I think in order to truly... I think the last bit of progress, if I'm right about everything, would be to get this star child out of the wormhole. So we've got this child kind of stabilized a little bit, but only as long as we keep the radiation stream going. So I'm not going to resolve it yet. I'm going to leave that last bit for escaping the wormhole. So what I'm actually going to do, Emile leaves the child inside of the med bay in a little bit of like a sealed like incubation sort of tube, or at least a modified one to serve that purpose, that is giving this radiation bath, and it's calmed. He's able to confidently go back to the cockpit. And we're just going to continue our journey through the wormhole. Let's get this child back into regular space so it can be fully born. So let's see if we can finally finish this only troublesome journey through a wormhole. So now I think he's moving at speed. He knows that he's dealing with a lot on board, and like he doesn't know how long this child will be subdued. So we're gonna roll with edge here and see what happens. All right, we get a weak hit, which means we can do one. I envision location and mark progress per rank of the expedition, but I choose one. Make a -2 suffer move or 2 -1 ones. Or I face a peril at the waypoint, envision what you encounter. Right now, we've been going from peril to peril right now. I'm less interested. I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit more, so I'm just going to make the suffer moves. As far as the waypoint that we're at, we don't really have good space encounter oracles for this because we are inside of a wormhole. We're not in real space. All those are going to be like, I don't want it to be like a stellar object or anything, so I'm just going to make up that we reach a part where it's sort of, it's reminiscent of, like, it's like a combination of being in the middle of a storm and also in the middle of like, there are aspects that are kind of like being inside of a brain where there's all these little, it's like a network web of like neurons firing occasionally against each other. We see these like nodes out in space. It's almost like an asteroid field of nodes. And every once in a while they form these connections. The space between them just becomes these quick little arcs of not electricity, but this high intensity energy between them. And so Emile, I guess I am describing a peril right now, so I'm not going to make the suffer move. We have basically a kind of modified asteroid field to have to navigate. So I give myself the progress to be able to get there, but in order to get to the next one, Emile's going to have to be super careful about this. But again, I do want to kind of blaze through this a little bit more, me as a player, so I'm not going to explore this area or anything. I think what this justifies to me is basically just, much as I want to move at speed in character, Emile recognizes that it's too dangerous. He's got to stay vigilant to know like the timing and everything, which seems like an edge sort of thing, but it's the wits to know like the moments and, you know, what are the patterns and stuff, how do you get through. So I'm going to undertake an expedition with wits this time in order to make through this sort of web of subspace brain activity sort of thing. Emile desperately wishes that he had the time to study and know more about what is this place, but there's no time now. So with wits we get... Alright, a strong hit. So we reach another waypoint, envision the location, and mark progress per the rank of the expedition. So we're up to 6 boxes here as we try and make our way through the wormhole. So what is this next one? We make it through the arcing energy area, past the other side. And Emile basically, he needs to... I think basically the reason why that happened, we described how there's a difference between being in like the center of it, where he's supposed to be, and having steered out into like the walls of the wormhole. And the walls are where things get weirder. And so Emile finds himself at the kind of wall separating the sort of perimeter area of the wormhole tunnel to the actual center, which will eventually pop him out where he's supposed to be. But I think due to the weird, like this exact area he's in, he finds it like, you can't just pass through. Like he was able to pass in from the other side, but maybe it's like maybe it's one directional like that, or sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but it's being weird. And he like tries to fly through, but the ship just kind of starts skidding up against it, and little like alerts are going off again, talking about like advisory to adjust course. You're rubbing up again. Like all these alerts start popping up, and Emile pilots away from it. And I think what this last little undertaking expedition is going to represent is Emile is basically going to fire some lasers at and start, like try and cut a path open that will allow himself to pass back through to the other side. And I think that's going to be most like moving at speed. He's not like observing and like making notes about how he can best like deal with this area and like how he's not scientifically studying it or anything. This is just trying to brute force his way through, which I think is most like moving at speed as he tries to just blast his way back into the regular side of the wormhole. So let's roll that with edge and see what we get. Okay, we get a weak hit. So we reach a last waypoint, but this progress costs you. Envision the location and mark progress for the rank of the expedition. This one's clear to me. I'm just going to make a -2 to the ship integrity because I think he's able to blast a little bit of it away, but it still just like really damages his ship to pass back through the wall this way. Like this is not the way you're supposed to do it. Ship integrity goes down to 3, but might as well see if we can try and withstand damage. I'm going to roll our remaining integrity and see what we get. All right, we get a strong hit, which means we can bypass it if the vehicle is not battered, which it's not. We can take 1 integrity back, or we can get 1 momentum by riding it out. No, Emile's gonna do like he definitely is. He's bypassing systems to like send little like nanobots and stuff back to kind of, or you know what he does? The way he bypasses that is like as the friction is building up and like heat is coming up on the ship. He uses kind of like the thermal systems to redirect that energy into like powering the radiation that is powering the systems that are irradiating the Star Child. He reroutes it to there, which is using a lot of energy, so it's able to convert that heat energy into the radiation that it's doing, which helps the ship not take as much damage, but it's still just grinding up enough against things that the outside is still definitely taking a hit. So we only take 1 instead of 2. But now that we're at 9 progress on the journey through the wormhole, I am indeed going to see how we fared. We're going to finish our expedition here. So let's see. We're going to roll with 9 progress, and we get... All right, a strong hit, and the dice weren't even trying. I rolled a 2 and a 1. We finished that journey with aplomb. We reach our destination or complete our survey, so we pop out the other end of the wormhole, finally. I get to mark a reward on our discoveries track, which is only 1 tick, because that was barely a journey at all. However, 1 tick is all I need to indeed finish a discoveries box, so I've got 2 experience to spend. More importantly for this moment, though, now that we're back in regular space, out near the unnamed planet that we know is Fern's homeworld, a couple of things. 1, I'm going to give myself a pip of progress on returning Fern to their homeworld because we're there. We are at the planet, and that brings us up to 6 boxes. The second thing, however, is let's get the Star Child back into space to see if it can be properly released. Now, before we do that, though, Emile is too curious of a person and recognizes, like, he keeps running into beings of great power. And this one, he knows somehow on the inside, like, affected his destiny. He doesn't want to lose it. He doesn't want this to be the last time they meet. He's too fascinated for that to be the case. So I am actually going to try and secure an advantage here to make a gadget. We're going to cobble together an ad hoc device, and it's basically just going to be like a long range. Like it's like he's tagging a shark. He wants to make a device that he can leave with the Star Child that'll allow him to find it again, no matter where it travels in space. So let's secure an advantage with wits as we try and construct this device before releasing the child to the cosmos. We get a strong hit, so we succeed, taking 2 momentum. Add +1 to your next move, not a progress move. Our momentum is all the way up at 5. The +1 will be as Emile... The reason we get this +1 is that Emile has constructed this device. It's not a physical implement, actually. He's using the med bay to make a kind of injectable serum. It's almost like a radioactive dye that he'll be able to see from long-range sensors. Like, he'll be able to pick it up with the ship systems. He knows that a ship with not this one, his ship doesn't have long-range sensors, but if he ever upgrades it so that it does, it would be able to pick this up from sectors away. And so he injects this child with it in advance, thinking that someday he'll be able to get that and be able to track it down. And the reason we get a +1 as we get the child out is I think because it is a, radioactive dye kind of thing, I think it actually heals the child more, and like this signature is going to help keep the child stable as he removes it from the med bay in the process to get it back out into space. It has a kind of radiation of its own that is going to help keep the child. It's like it's breathing. Like if the child needed air, it would be like you've supplied it with enough oxygen on the inside to buy you more time. But in this case, it's, space radiation bullshit sci-fi stuff. So Emile injects the Star Child with it, and we're going to make one final move with a +1 as we try and face danger to get the child back out from the ship into space. Definitely this is about speed, mobility, or agility. He doesn't have a lot of time and figures as soon as he takes it out of this path, like the clock is ticking. So Edge with a +1, and so Edge the +1 from our secured advantage. I'm not going to give myself the +1 from using the device because that'll be when we try and track this kid down. The device was about that. It just happens to be helping in this case, which is really already represented by that +1. So Edge with a +1 to get this child out in time, and we get... Oh, and I am going to give myself a second +1 because I'm going to use the mobility belt because I want to be able to move quickly. Emile takes the time to strap it onto himself. So Edge with a +2, and I get... Ooh, it is a good thing that I gave myself that extra +1 because we needed it to roll we rolled maximum on our dice, but that gave us the push to get a 10, which is good because one of my challenge dice is a 9. That last +1 from the mobility belt was exactly what I needed to push this into a strong hit. So we are successful. We take +1 momentum. We get the child out into space so that it can be fully birthed. So it can be in its proper, actual habitat. I give myself the last 2 pips of progress, and I'm going to fulfill that vow. So, rolling against 10 full boxes of progress, we get a strong hit. Your vow is fulfilled. So it was a dangerous vow, so I get to have 2 ticks on my quest legacy. So this is quite a session for getting ticks. That actually also fills my quest box, so I have 4 experience to be able to use. Whoopee for me. I'll get to... I'm just swimming in experience now. I'll have to think about how I want to use that. It's a bit of a somber moment as Emile watches... He basically just leaves the child in the airlock and vents it out into space, which usually that sentence is much more dark, but in this case it's really for the best. He watches nervously, doubting maybe he didn't have the right idea, maybe despite it working before he's just wrong and he's leaving the child to his death. But Emile sees the child clearly take to the environment more, and I think it even just it gets more out of its fetal position and starts reaching its limbs around and begins to kind of swim through the vacuum of space very elegantly and maneuvers away. But as it does, it turns back to the ship and gives this kind of look that Emile interprets as a knowing look. And maybe he's just reading into the situation, we don't know, but Emile thinks it's a look of acknowledgement, some part of the Star Child knows that Emile was trying to help him. But the moment passes as the child moves out of view, and Emile looks back in the other direction and sees the planet that he is orbiting, the unknown place that Fern calls home. And in this moment, Fern even finally fully reconstitutes and slides up alongside Emile and is looking out the window as well. Fern's color changing to a more pleased hue. Pleased, not with Emile, but a kind of contentment. That full the calmness and joy of finally being home. But as for what exactly we're going to find on that planet and what is left in the process of truly returning Fern to their homeworld, well, that's a question for next time. Hey, you made it to the end of the show, which means you probably wound up deciding for yourself that, you know what, I am going to listen to this one. Or I guess maybe theoretically somebody could have thought that the content would be a little bit triggering but still wanted to hear the outro. I don't know if I have enough listeners to allow for somebody with that particular, but I don't know, maybe you're that person. Regardless, you're here in the outro now, which means it's time for me to give you your prompts. This week, we are going to go along with the idea of a star child being able to change somebody's fate by moving the stars, right? So the prompt this week is kind of pretending that we're doing that again. A star child is manipulating somebody's fate. And I want you to tell me what destiny is created through this action and theme. We have hide and possession. So a star child is manipulating your destiny, and it involves the words hide and possession. What fate is created? Send your answers over to me at starforgedpod@gmail.com. I'm always eager to hear them. I really, really love anytime you send it in, so please take that moment of creativity, send it in. Even if you think it's bad, it still is just that sign to me that somebody is listening and enjoying the content and just wants to participate. It means so much to me, so please send in your answers. Again, starforgedpod@gmail.com. But with that out of the way, play me out, music.